Yep, there we go. So, in today's thing, workshop, that's the one. In today's workshop, we're going to be looking at taking the high polygon pants as an example. Of course, it would be the whole avatar, but we're going to be focusing on just the pants today because we have limited time. But when it comes to VRMs in WebGL especially, we need to make sure that the poly count is very reasonable and the file size is reasonable and all the rest of it. So a big part of that is in both spaces and VRMs is lowering the poly count as much as possible, but keeping it the quality of that asset as high as possible at the same time. Now, there's some tools you can use to do that, such as baking and creating normal maps and all that sort of stuff. But the first step is to make the low polygon asset. So we're going to be looking at that today. So, yeah, let's jump in. All right. So the first thing we're going to focus on is just quickly going over some of the assets, the documentation in regards to what we're sort of hoping to do. So in docs.modiverse.com, we have the VRM avatar section, and then we have all of our VRM content. But today we're sort of going to focus on this one in regards to the specifications and requirements. So under this picture, you'll have some of these recommendations. Now, these are not targets. These are recommendations to be below. So you actually want it to be less if you can, because then your avatar, or once again, this will apply to any asset that you create in Monospace or WebGL space, is important to get as low as possible. So if you're doing a cube, don't make it a 30,000 polygon cube. It should be like 6. So yeah. So when it comes to VRMs, basically what we're looking at is less than 2 meters in height. I think 1.8 is the capsule collider for the asset, and the capsule collider will not change to the VRM. So if you're going to make a huge VRM, which we don't really recommend because it'll just get in the way for the most part, the collider won't be that size. So keeping things under 2 meters is definitely a good way to go. It has to be, it definitely should be less than 30,000 polygons in total for desktop, and that's 60,000 triangles. So a polygon is 2 triangles put together. It's just a standard unit of many processes for that. Now, VRM has been recommended to have these following units. I think certain applications can use higher, so VR chat and stuff like that. But once again, WebGL does limit our abilities, so we sort of took these down a little bit. So 2 skin meshes, so ones that can move with a rig or a skeleton. 4 unskinned meshes, and 4 or less materials. Now, materials usually take up textures, and textures take up file size. And once again, well, not once again because I haven't mentioned it yet. Textures, no, the total file size of the VRM should be about 10 to 20 meg total, because if, for example, we get to the point where VRMs are the standard and you have 200 to 400 to 600 users in a space, that's a lot of file size for the user to download. And in some countries, like Japan, that's not a problem because we have great internet. If you go to other countries like Australia, not so much. So that's why we want to get the file size down. So these are sort of the standards. So 1.8 meters, between 10 and 30,000 polygons, 1 to 2 skin meshes, and 1 or 2 materials. And each of those materials will probably have a diffuse, a normal, and a metallic smoothness texture. Diffuse is just color. Normal is cool bumpiness. So what we're doing today is creating a low polygon asset that will project the high polygon information onto it, and the normal map is the thing that makes it look like a high polygon asset. So super useful, and good for getting the polygon down while still looking really good. If you want to work on mobile or VR when Mona gets to it, or you just want to be really small, these are the recommended ones. So less than 10,000 polygons, one skin mesh, one material, and 1024 materials are better. Especially if you're looking at something like Oculus Quest 2, because that is a standalone device and has much more limited resources to use to render all of the things. And Oculus space or Oculus experience needs to go at like 90 frames a second to be comfortable. Less than that, and you're looking at people feeling nauseous and sick, and they'll get out of your space very quickly. So when it comes to VR, and this will also apply to Mona spaces, it kind of will have to be designed for VR in mind, and then work in desktop rather than desktops just magically working in VR, unless we get pixel streaming, and that's a whole different ballgame. So there we go. There are some other elements that you can use with VRMs. We may support them in the future. Say, for example, blend shapes and things like that, but we won't be looking at that for this round because they're not supported just yet. So if and when that happens, I'll probably be looking at more tutorials there. So that is the VR overall, or overview. So let's look at what we're going to be doing today. So I spent a little bit of time in the on the asset that we're pulling up. So the pants are sort of much closer. I would, of course, take this a bit further, but this is perfectly good for our purposes. So this would be like maybe the first pass polish. Then there was like maybe two more. If I was with a client, I'd give this back to feedback and say, okay, what are your thoughts? Other elements that I would like to add is things like, let's get rid of the Comic Sans material. Hang on, there we go. So what was I saying? So I'd like to put things like stitching, perhaps, along here, because I think that would look really cool. But that's a super fine detail, and I would probably do that in like Substance Painter, because you can do cool things with that sort of detail a bit better there, depending on the size of that asset in the UV map and stuff like that. So yeah. I also have a cool spine thing that we did there. So let's say we're going to sort of make this. Now, there's a couple approaches to it. So because I made these straps in a non-destructional yeah, I'm sure you get what I mean. What I mean. So if I look at this, and I put dynamic subdivision on, and you can actually see the asset here in its low polygon state still. So I can actually export that rather than trying to make it again. So there are benefits to sort of making some of the assets with dynamic subdivision, because then you can export the low polygon as it is, and then that's already done. So I'll probably do that just to save a bit of time on that one. Could probably do it with the belt as well, like so. But everything else, I'm probably going to retopologize with the tactics we have involved. I also have this character is also the original Polygon. I didn't modify this at all, except for adding that weird smile. But I could export that from here if I still have it, in order to save some time with the overall experience. So yeah, choosing how you're starting your low polygon is definitely a process. So let's get the assets here. So we're gonna export that one as separate. Actually, no, I'm gonna keep this one as a high and retopologize the thing around it, because that's probably better as one asset. So I'm gonna leave that as is and just keep this one as separate, because I want to use spring bones maybe for these and get some sort of animation there as well. So hide those, and I'm going to export basically all of those as one asset. So let's do that. What are we doing? So ZBrush has an FBX export import tool by default. So I'm going to go to visible and basically leave everything else as default. You can look at options there if you want to export anything there, but I just want to export the assets. So all the visible ones and export. What I will do though, if you have an asset that is super high polygon, and these kind of are, if you have an asset that is super high polygon, you might want to decimate. So I'm going to save this as a new thing, because I'm going to start making some big changes here. So I'm going to save that. Then I can do what I want. Now for that, so we go to, which one is it? Decimation Master. Now what Decimation will do is kind of modify the topology to work better. So you can use Decimate, which will just kind of like make everything smaller polygons. So as you can see, this is all kind of very neat, but it's also very high polygon, like ridiculously high. So if I do, well, let's do this. Let's pre-process the current, and that'll take a moment, depending on the complexity of the space or the asset. And then we can go decimate current. And I can set the quality and how many polygons and all those sort of things here. So I can make this 200,000 polygons. I can make it even smaller. You could use this on other assets as well, if you were making like a sofa. So the same thing applies. And then just go decimate current. And it looks like that. Now, I'll lose my divisions when you do this, but it looks exactly the same, but it has a much lower poly count. Now, once again, this is still not usable, and don't worry about the faceting there. When it goes into Blender or Substance Painter or whatever, it'll sort that out. So ZBrush does look a little different, so keep that in mind. But yeah, so that's Decimation, which is a really cool tool. Can I? Yeah, right. Or another one you can use is Remesher. Where was that? Here. And this will kind of do things a little bit different. So let's have a look at Remesh. And let's go halve and see what happens. Keep groups. So if you have groups, it'll keep those as sort of separate things, which is sometimes a good thing to use. And let's just go Remesher. Takes a little bit longer. But as you can see, the lines of a remesh sort of follow where it thinks things actually are. So it takes a little bit longer to process. So if you have a more complicated thing, so if you look at, once again, it looks exactly the same, and the poly count is much smaller. So Remesh and Decimate are two tools that you can use to do the things. Do I want to get rid of that? I do actually, because those are separate. That was that one. That one I need to keep there, and I need to get rid of these ones. So it's Remesh, super useful, but I'm going to keep them all. I have a higher end PC, so I don't want to use that destructive element. So I'm just going to keep them for now. If it's a bit too slow, I will modify it later. Okay, mask. And then we want to separate. Where's that one again? Split. Where's split? Split. Split masked points. Let's see if that's it. Yeah. So what I'm doing there is I had these buckles and these buckles in the same asset, so I couldn't hide those, but now I can. So that, and then where are they? Those two? Nope. There we go. There we go. Okay. So our base asset, and then we can put our things on there. All right. Actually, no, I will. No, it should be fine. It should be fine. It is on a stream. I'm gonna use. I kind of like Z Remesh better actually, so I'm gonna use that one. Alt and left click will select different tools, so you can just quickly do that. Z Remesher worked, so I'm gonna just cue that. Sniffling. Actually, Mike, while it does this, I'm gonna go blow my nose. One moment. I'm gonna mute this one. Alrighty. Okay, it's done. Once we have sort of remeshed and decimated or all of those things, we want to export our asset. So let's do that. Visible, defaults, export. Let's go mannequin mail. No, not that one. Where are we? Workshops. No, they're there. And hi. Save. File exported. Now we want to export a couple of other assets. As low poly. So let's get that one. We could, I'm hoping, did I? I did. I'm a genius. Okay. So now once again, this wouldn't work because this would be higher polygon. Because I want to put all like detail and stuff in these parts. But I can use once again the dynamic version of this. All of that doesn't work, so I'm going to hide all that. So that's too high poly, high poly, high poly. What's that? Yep, those go. Belt goes. Those are shown again. That is hidden. that one, and that one. And we want to turn off all of the dynamic things. So that's dynamic. Now, these are not necessarily... Yeah, that one doesn't have it, but do I have... No. So that's too high polygon, but because it's sort of with this, I can make that one asset, which is what I want to do. So we can do that. Those aren't too close, and I can easily break them apart in... No, let's save a step in Blender by hiding this one and that one. So let's see, plugin, export. Let's say just straps. These are actually, yeah, these are meant to be low. All right. And then we get rid of these ones. One more hidden. Where did they go? So even though it's invisible, if I'm on it, it will still show it. So if I go here, that'll disappear. Now, do I want to separate them or do I want to keep them together? Keep them together. So Zbrush Export, mannequin. Let's do base. That'll do. Hey, Joe Lee. Joe Lee. Joe Lee. There we go. I'm doing great, actually. Looking forward to getting into this. I've had, like, as soon as I put that spine in, I'm like, yeah, this is this is the next character I want to make. So I have this idea. I want a big coat, like very cyberpunk sort of style. And it's quite frustrating because I want a really cool coat, but the really cool coat will hide the spine. That said, maybe I'll have the coat coming away from the spine. Oh, that'd be pretty cool. Okay, that figures that problem. So yeah, I want to have this like high glowy collar with like trench coat maybe. And yeah, this spine going down the back, which would look cool. Originally, I was thinking to get around that, I was going to have like a hole, like a big circle in the back of the coat so you could see the spine, which would also be quite interesting, I think. But no, I think I'm going to have a coat come from that. I don't know how you would take it off, but not important. You could, and this is actually a really interesting point. So, Fractilians did a stream yesterday and was talking about creating a story for your character, and that's a really good point where you'll have a lot of backstory before you even really start designing the character. So when you get to the design of the character, you kind of already know why things need to happen. And this is kind of basically a real example of doing that very thing. So in this case, though, it's a little bit of a battle of making it look cool, but also make sense. So yeah, having a coat coming away from a spine doesn't make any sense because you can't put on a coat, but it does look really cool, and I kind of want to do that. So how do you make that happen? So to take off a coat that ties around a spine that is embedded, you could 100% have basically a button system. So you put the coat on and somebody else would have to do it. But in the future, we're going to have drones that do it all for us, so that's fine. But I would create a part of the texture, probably in Substance Painter, because it's like just simple buttons, where like you would have the ability to place buttons on the spine. So I would kind of need to put like a little what do you call it, extra part on the side of each of those things that has a buckle point, and then you can put cool assets around that. So basically, I figured out the backstory of how the coat works or clothing in the future, which is pretty cool. So you got that. So having these sort of things really adds to the character, because if I didn't have that and I just made the coat, um, there's like there's a lot of probably subconscious ideas of this doesn't really work um, as well as it could. And a lot of people will pay attention to the details. Like if they really like your character, they'll get into the detail and look at their things, and then they'll notice like why are there buttons there? It's like, oh, okay, because you can unlock that. So I'd have the sort of waviness of like a buckled thick coat element around it, and that detail would be like a really cool thing for people who enjoy your work. So yeah, there's a lot of thought, and if you're looking at like AAA games, there's a lot of thought that goes into these sort of decisions. What was I think this is a long one, but I think what was it? The mythic level Overwatch characters take about a year to make. Um, and once again, like that whole game is based on characters, so those characters have to be amazing. So yeah, 6 months to 1 year for extremely important characters. So main characters of a game or whatnot. I think the usual is about 2 to 3 months for characters, 3 to 6 months for a AAA main character, and one to like maybe 1 month or even less for less important characters. But also, if you had less important characters, you'd probably kit bash a lot of them. So you'd have base meshes, modify them, put different clothes together, and sort of build characters quickly because they're less important. All right, so we have our assets. Jumping back into it, there's a bit of a tangent, but yeah. And how are you going, Joe? You doing well? You working on a VRM? What do we got? So we have our space and nothing's in it. We haven't actually got any content. So we're actually doing from what we need to do, which is Mona, VRMs. Nope, this is a tutorial and a workshop under VRMs. And we need all of our assets. So there was base low. Can I multiple import? Thinking about it. Yes. Now I do recommend doing a height check. And the best way to do that is just to add a cube, because that cube is 2 meters by 2 meters. So if I just move that up using control to snap it to that, go wireframe, that is pretty much exactly 1.8 meters. Now the reason that is I think I made this asset, no, this asset, um, in Blender. So this was already at 1.8 meters. Another thing you should check, and this is a prime example, is the scale is 0.01, which is wrong. So pretty much at every point in any game engine process, you want all of these to be reset to 1, which is Control A. In object mode, and then just go all transforms. Scale is the main one, but I just generally do all transforms. So, yep. And then you've got 1, rotations correct, and dimensions are 1.81, for example. Now that will apply to all of them. So I'm just going to go through. I'm not sure if I can do this. Let's give that a shot. Yes, it can multiple. Blender is a bit weird where some things can be done as one asset and sometimes it is not, and it's quite frustrating, but yeah. My naming is not great. But for this asset, it doesn't matter so much, but I'd still recommend doing it. So let's do a quick I wish I could time lapse this really quickly. Oh, that's interesting. Why? How does that look? Eh, not so bad. So on that one, you're right. What I'm gonna do is gonna bevel everything. Oh, I wonder if so. These assets were made in ZBrush completely, but it looks like they've got crease on it. So I'm wondering, and this is really cool if that's the case. I'm wondering if crease actually ports um, from ZBrush, which would be really cool. Yeah, better. Okay, problem solved. um, and this one too, for example. So I'm just gonna basically, how do I Control L selects all of that. I'm gonna bevel all of that just a little. And I'll do that one as well. Okay, so we're going to now today I'm going to focus mostly on the retopology of the main asset. So I'm going to get rid of some of these. So get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of those. Let's get the high polygon and rename that. Put that up the top. Okay, so it's kind of interesting that, and I didn't know this actually. So it looks like if I've got an asset that is dynamic, it doesn't apply it on export. So just a heads up for those. So for example, this one, I exported this as is. Where are we looking at? Where are we looking at? There it is. Down. So that's what it was exported, and dynamic was on. And if I wanted to export that, but it's actually cleaner now that I don't need it, and there's different ways to do it, but I can just go apply, and that will export properly. So just a heads up on that. And yeah, I'll keep that as low polygon, I think. I'm gonna go to wireframe just to see what's going on with that. So that's low polygon, and that's also low polygon. So I'm gonna get rid of one of them. Let's hide that one. Okay. Low. Cool. And interestingly enough, one is maybe the wrong way. So I'm just going to delete that one because the other one works. Cool. Alrighty. So for argument's sake, I'm actually going to hide these two because, to be honest, I just want to retopologize these pants. So let's do that. So the first thing I will do is we need a bit of a mesh. So usually, I don't know why, I think it's because it's front facing. So I'll grab a cube, I'll scale that down, I'll move it up, I'll press tab to go to edit mode. And then I'll grab the first four on the back assets, delete them. So we have this plane here. Now, if I just made a plane, it'll be flat and then you can rotate that. All you need is a polygon at the front. Now the magic comes down to snap, which is this button here, and then go to face, and then leave that as is. And then what happens, this is actually quite fun, you can basically place your polygons on the asset, and that's it. That's Retopology in one easy step. And then after that, you just create and build from that. So you're basically tracing the high polygon. Now with practice, you start understanding how many polygons you need. You don't need to keep it sort of uniform. It can be sort of, some areas are more detailed, some areas are not. But when it comes to, let me see something, because there's something, this one. Let me see if I can use this. Turns up on one of my screens somewhere. There it is. So, excellent. So when it comes to the retopology and the low polygon asset, the normal map is going to do a lot of magic. Is the technical approach to a lot of this. And the main thing you're looking at is looking for the silhouette. So any silhouette elements definitely need the polygon count, right? So if you look at, let's say here, so I'm going to just make it a bit clearer. So when you look at, is there a straight line? Yeah, let's get a straight line, because that sort of implies what we're doing. So we sort of have an edge there, we have an edge there, we have an edge there, we have an edge there. And depending on the detail of the assets you're creating, these are, or this is, the silhouette. So a big part of choosing where your polygons go is partly how many there are, what will the silhouette look like. Let's go all the way around, because the socks something. So this is kind of like the minimum base. So that line there, for example, is very long, but the next thing you need to consider when it comes to your retopology is the animation. Now, if you're making an asset that is going to be like a sofa, it's only about the silhouette. So if you can optimize it to be as few polygons as possible, then you're good. But with an avatar, you also have to consider animation. So this could be a box if you wanted to. So you had a really simple character, you could 100% do that as like 4 sides. But around the knee, where you'll have some animation, you'll need kind of the minimum, actually. What you would need is kind of like a line at the back, and then kind of a knee at the front. Like so. And then continue your polygons as needed. So 2 things with your poly count and how you're going to place these polygons is the silhouette is the most important for how many. Once again, you need to get that as low as possible. So 10,000 to 30,000 polygons for the entire character in a VRM, partly because of file size, partly because WebGL needs to render all of the VRMs. And it's quite a lot. So be nice to the user and try to keep this as low as possible. So yeah, silhouette and animation. Is there any other things that sort of play a part in it? This is less important. Oh no, let's go into another one that is very important. Edge loops. Now, edge loops are basically, if I create, let's get rid of that one. So if I'm creating sort of around here, so I will create basically a loop around the asset. Let's change color. So it goes sort of through. Like so. And this one improves animation. It improves weight painting. So if you need to clean up some of how your polygons are added to the skeleton, edge loops are super useful. And also just in modeling in general. So I could easily, with Alt left click, I think it is, select this and move it around, do what I need to. But if I created sort of like a loop, so let's say this went up 1, and then it went sort of like around the front again, then once again continued. When you select this loop, it will select the whole leg, which is not what you want to do. So edge loops are super useful for many reasons, and it's a very good tool to help building, weight painting, and all those sorts of things. So do that. The other thing we need to consider with retopology is it's less important nowadays, but I think it's just good practice. Partly because edge loops are easier with this approach, but you want most 99% of your avatar to be polygons, so 4-sided polygons. You can use tries in some areas to sort of close them, and there's a whole art form to creating polygons in neat ways to represent your avatar or asset, and then like removing those down to less polygonal areas or more polygon areas. There's a whole craft to it. So we might be able to get some of those in as well. So yeah, those are kind of all of the things that I keep in mind when trying to create an asset. So let's clear all those. Last thing. And this is less important, especially if you're baking, but when you're texturing or baking, so we're getting this high polygon onto the low polygon with normal maps, you have to make a texture. So let's pull the thing back. And to do that, you have to just kind of unwrap, and that's what it's literally called. You unwrap your polygons to be flat, so it acts as a 2D element, which is the texture, right? So when you're doing that, you have to, when you're flattening things, you have to sort of cut a line so it kind of can unwrap that way, and it'll make more sense in a second. Let's do an example. So if I had a cube and I wanted to make that flat, I would basically have to cut many of the edges and then just like unwrap it so it's flat. But what happens is with more complex shapes, especially organic ones, the seam, which is where you'll have an edge of that flat island or object in textures, will be more difficult to texture neatly, because so I'm just doing a quick silhouette based line here. So you want to sort of have these seams kind of hidden, so on the inside of the leg is good, or on a seam, on the, like if you had like an edging for the seam, that would be a really good way to do that. But if I wanted to do a pattern, and this is the same with t-shirts, for example, if you had a patterned t-shirt, the seam will break that pattern. And that's a good example of visualizing some of the issues that you might have. Now, with the bake, you would have, it cleans up that. You don't really have to worry about it because it will clean between the two seams. It's more about patterns and trying to match two things manually. If you're painting in Substance, it kind of has ways to help. It's not, yeah, you can do it in Substance Painter and tools where you're painting in the 3D, and that's fine. So yeah, seams are definitely an approach to it. So we'll look at some of those as we go. So that's that. Super useful tool. I'm going to remember to use that more often. Okay. So when it comes to retopology, basically I will use how many keys? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 keys. 4 keys. 4 or 5 keys. So we have our polygon. We've got it on snap. And the first one I will do is press 2 to use edges. And then I will press E to extrude that edge somewhere else. Now, one of these, it doesn't, I think, it doesn't snap all of it. So if I do that, no, like that didn't go, this polygon didn't go up here onto the buckle. It was based on this one. So you'll usually bounce between lines. So let's do sort of 3. Press 1 to go polygons, and you can do these up here. So polygon, edge, and face. But for the most part, I'll usually use polygon and edge. Press 1 to go to edge, click on an edge, and press G to move it around where you think it needs to go. So I'm gonna sort of do that. And that's it. Actually, I don't know, there's some other ones as well. So back to edge. I'm gonna move that across there. So this polygon, I want to put that up to there, so that's where I'm going to put that. But we don't need to put another one here. We could actually just put that there and then build another one up that way. So knowing where to place your polygons is super useful and comes with practice. I made a lot of characters over time, so I can sort of do this relatively quick. All right, so we've got E for extrude and G for move. Another one, super useful, and this might be an add-on, so I'll show what it does and then show you how to add it if it's not by default. So we have 2 edges here, and I want a polygon here. So if I select this one on the inside and press F, it will snap to... Actually, let me try something. Undo that. Yeah. So if I'm off the asset, so my as soon as I put it on the high polygon, it'll snap it. But if I'm off the asset, like over in space here, and press F, it will put it where it thinks it needs to be based on these. So make it a square. So that's super useful. And then move it as needed. Or just press F and put it, like, go where you want it to go, even, and just go F, and then click. So that's a super fast way to do things. If you don't have this by default, this is in Edit, Preferences, and I recommend putting this on anyway, and pressing F2. So Mesh F2, super useful. And it does things with the F key. Edit mode F, such as adding those sort of things. So highly recommended. So E. Let's go. Oops, my mistake. So we're going to put that there. Now this is a prime example of where a triangle may be okay. So I'm going to E, grab that one, put it there with G. I'm going to grab that one, hold shift and grab that one, and go right mouse click, merge vertices at last. Now, Merging vertices, you can sort of do it at center, at cursor, at last, at first. So super useful. So we've got that. So this is a situation where a triangle is fine because there's kind of no other way to get that kind of detail. That said, I'd recommend trying to keep polygons as few as possible, as needed, or as you can. And of course, it's a bit tricky, but you'll get there. Go back all the way up here. Do that one there. And then, yeah, just basically adjust as needed. Now, in a way, oddly enough, you don't have to be as neat as you might expect. One thing you do have to try and do, though, and this comes with practice as well, is the normal map is baking the high polygon information into the low polygon information. So once again, if you don't see the silhouette, I could, if I wanted to, move this down here and have even a little bit deeper down here, and then put this up here, because the normal map will project this information onto it more correctly. And that's a really good opportunity to sort of connect. So if you have two edges here and press F, that will connect those two. So that's a good way to do that one as well. Let's move that across there, because that there is very small. But, and this is a prime example of maybe a bit of an issue. So I'm going to do that so we can sort of see. Oh, no, it's not. Because that's how it works. That's how belts work. But if you look at that, you've got that sort of detail in here. So this gets a bit messy. But let's look at some options. And once again, it depends on your poly count. If you have a higher poly count, like a AAA game that is downloadable on Cyberpunk, you could 100% put that in there. But I'm going to press F to make that polygon. Pay attention to the angle. And let's go into draw mode again. Okay, so let's go blue. So what's happening here? The blue is the high polygon. What? Why? Okay. The blue is the high polygon. So let's sort of do a quick example of that. Sort of there. And then it goes up to there. And then it continues on up there. Now, our polygon is actually going to go there and there. There and there. Now, notice the angle between these two. Let's go with a different color. So when this projects, the baking light, so imagine you're going to bake. Let's go the other way, actually. The bake information is actually kind of this way. So the high polygon information will be projected on the pink down. So if you notice, there's a little bit of, hang on, there's a little bit. I wish I could do this like really clean, but I can't. I'm sure you get the picture. So you have, this is going to be normal mapped here. So we have that detail. Now let's undo that. Now, if I do have another color, okay. So if I had another asset where I did, it had to go back for some reason. Like so. That edge would have no information to bake. So that wouldn't turn up. And the result would just be exactly so like this flat edge here. It's quite difficult to describe. So hopefully this approach to it might help you. But yeah, so having understanding how normal maps work allow you to generate your textures a little better. Nope. Get rid of them and get back to it. So I think for this low polygon asset, that might and should actually work. Now, once again, this would be a higher quality result than this. Once again, the belt didn't really import as we needed it to. That said, let's edit that now. Edge loops. So once again, just by pressing Alt and click, it will select the whole top loop. Loops are great. Use them. And then I can do that. For this belt, I might actually do a little bit and then add a little bit of detail. Edge loop. Cool. So that's a much neater approach. Okay, back to our asset. So once again, there's a bit of a slant there, so that's excellent. We want that. So I can just not worry about that too much. And of course, there will be cases where you'll create the asset and realize that it's not good enough for the purposes that you're trying to do. So you might have to come back after baking and clean that up. So yeah, it's a whole puzzle solving thing. So here I could press F and do that, but then you create that. I don't want that because this time I'm going to E, put that over here, and then do this, and then we can sort of do that, which is a much better approach. Now, what can we do with this one? Because this one looks a bit messy. So I'm going to sort of put that there, move that up. Okay, so I'm going to go maybe there. Grab that and that. Extrude it. And then I can move these around. So finding the best way to make the polygons in your asset takes a bit of time. If you can't see things, you can put things on there. Do that. Unfortunately, I've found it difficult to once this gets more complete, you can't seem to, I can't seem to, even though I've looked into it, hide the back face of your asset. So you would see all of the asset, which is quite annoying, to be honest. So if anyone knows how to get past that, the material approach, which does have a backface tool, doesn't seem to work either. So if I do that, where is it? I think backface culling, this doesn't work. So I'm not sure why. So if anyone knows anything about that, please tell me. Okay. So now that we've got that little bit of detail, I can get back to building more general. I'm going to put that over there. Actually, no, I'm going to put that here. I'm going to press E. I'm going to close that one. And then we have our edge. Dunk, dunk. Now, I would leave it there because we actually want to mesh this guy. Oh, so that's there. So let's go E. Put that there. Put this at the edge there because we want that silhouette there. This one, however, could go all the way in. So E. At some point, I'm going to stop saying the shortcuts, but if I say them enough, maybe they'll get drilled into your brain and you'll never forget them. I'm doing it for you. Okay. So this is another prime example where I'd probably just make it triangular. And then we have this. So E. G. G. And I'm trying to line it to these elements here as well. So let's go, nope, F. Line, line, F. Now that one, yeah, let's just move it up. Other tools you can use that are very useful sometimes. Where is it? Viewport display, and if you go in front, this will always be in front. So you can sort of see what you're doing a bit better. So a lot of the time I will generally bounce between see-through, not that see-through, turning in front off, going that one, and then see-through. And then it's a bit easier. See-through, that one. Lines get really hard. That said, you could 100% like snap it to that, so it would be very easy to see the edges. So there's definitely different tools between sort of wireframe, solid, X-ray mode, and in front. If you want to, you could also use wire and in front, and you get that sort of effect where you just see the wire. So yeah, there's lots of approaches to getting the best result. And here I can sort of see that maybe we need to add some elements here. So more tools. Control R will add a loop into a thing, and then right mouse click to make it happen, I guess you could say. So, and then back to G, click, click, merge, G, and then for that one, yeah, I'll close that one and that. And we can sort of move that one up a bit. So yeah, different approaches to visualization will really help this out. Now, I'm being very precise about this. Some people will be a little faster about it. Yeah, Retopology is definitely a craft of its own. Now this one, I want more to be here, but this doesn't need to have as much information. No, I'll leave it. Okay. So this is where you can start speeding things up. So I'm going to grab that whole edge and then just press E. Depending on where it thinks the edge is. So I'm going to say grab this one and then go E. No. No, that was line. Line. And then E. So it will basically grab the closest vertex on the line that you've sort of do. So if you're just over here, it's kind of a bit of a gamble, but you do have the ability to precisely control which of the polygons you are kind of controlling, I guess you could say. Now, this example, and I'm going a lot slower because I'm explaining all of these different approaches to how I would do it. So yeah, this would be a lot faster when I don't have to describe it all. And yeah, these decisions are made like nearly every single polygon, but you start getting much faster at it. So two approaches here. I could grab this and build behind it. So if I go E, that goes up there. I would probably do that, I guess. It would be neater. And then I can grab those two, and then press F, and then we have our asset. You don't have to two-edge polygons. It can be two edges to make a triangle as well. So you have some options there. That and with that in mind, I'm going to use a knife tool, which is K, or where is it? This one here. But usually I'll just do a shortcut because I'll usually just cut one thing. So that allows me to grab a vertex and then cut there, press space to apply it, and then I can sort of move that down like so. And then I'm going to merge those two. So we have another triangle, and that's fine, but this is not going to animate. So we don't really have to worry about animation on this particular asset. So we got that. Now I could, if I wanted to, do I want to? No, because I want more polygons to be down here. And if I move that across, I have less to work with. So this is a point where I can sort of expand the number of polygons as needed. So let's do that as an example. And then once again, you start speeding things up down here. Now notice how I'm sort of playing to two things when I'm building the polygons. A big part is the silhouette. So as you can see, I'm following that edge there. I'm also following the stream, but at some point also, depending on the size of the element that you're silhouetting, I'm not going to follow every single one. So a lot of these, for example, I'm not going to go down here because that will break the polygon loops. And the polygon loops, especially with legs and arms and shoulders especially, are extremely important because of animation. So up here also you have a lot of things going up, so we need this part to have a lot of polygons. Actually, let's do this because I kind of like this. So we're going to need kind of a lot of polygons here, because this whole section is going to be really complex, because it's like the butt and the front are really complicated to animate. So you need lots of loops in that direction. So I can move the leg up. And over here, it's sort of the same. I have to put kind of more vertices around this area because eventually... grease pencil. I gotta use... I gotta learn a grease pencil. I haven't used it, but this would be great for it. Can I do it? Should I do it? How do I do grease pencil? I've never done it. I want to do it. Annotate. Ha! Ooh, dear. Ah. Cool. Okay. That was tab. All right. Annotate. You can do that? That's a thing you can do? Excellent. Okay. So, as I was saying, so it does do that. Can I... No, I can't snap it. That's annoying. That would have been really cool. Placement. Surface. Zoop. Zoop. Okay. But you can't undo that. Okay, interesting. All right, good to know. So now that I know this whole new tool that I can use, we are going to create we need a lot of polygons here and down here. because when that rotates, so let's change the surface to view. These will be, can I change the color? Maybe not. Oh no. Yep. Oh, okay. So when that goes red, I can, that will actually go sort of across here, so that'll stretch out. So, interesting. Might have to look into that a bit. But that's super cool. So yeah, there's a lot of elements of animation, especially with the VRM, that kind of affect how you once again retopologize, and that comes down to a big part of it. So keeping all these things in mind, once again, it's very much a process that you will learn over time. Once you do the whole process, so you can understand, okay, this area needs to be uh, animatable. This area doesn't. It can just look cool. Things like that. So if I wasn't worried about animation, I would put this down here. But I'm very worried about animation, so I'm going to add loops in here. And then those continue down. Get that loop there. I'm going to move all of it and then sort of adjust as needed. Now I'm going to keep the polygons, sort of try to keep them squarish. I don't know how true that needs to be. I just do it because it's, I come from older times when things were more complicated. And this one, like, I could do both, and then, so for example, I could do that, but at this point, I'm going to go to a larger area that needs more loops. So instead of combining those two, I'm actually going to separate them like that, so I can then do this. And then put those around. Because that allows me more polygons for this area. Goes down there, goes down there. Let's sort of build this maybe to there. Now that's all curved, but if I normal map it, that'll sort of look fine, and the silhouette will also be fine. So yeah, one of those sort of cases of choose your own adventure. Okay, so this is going to go up because we want sort of like the pelvis, and then we want the leg. Now there are whole different ways to do it depending on your approach to a lot of these things. But yeah. Let's do that. Do another triangle there, I think. Now this one, I'm going to go back, I think. So I'm going to delete that. So D, like if you press delete, it'll give you those options. And then I'm going to put this at last. And then you have to decide, okay, have I done this wrong? And I think I have. So I'm going to get rid of those. Because big triangles are kind of bad. You can use them, but... So maybe there's a different approach to do it. So let's try this, now that we have a little more. There we go. So yeah, and that was a very natural thing. It's not that I was wrong. You will find that you'll add some and then realize a different, better way to do it depending on the movement and things like that. So yeah, do know that like these sort of things are 100% malleable in regards to how you do them. Okay. Now, another example here, for example, I didn't get the whole edge. I just moved that. So when I get that edge, I can remove that one and extrude that. Now, the reason I'm doing that is so I can do that. And then continue on. Now, we have a silhouette here that I think we need. So I'm going to put that up there and then move that one up. Now, this one is interesting. What would be the best way to do this, I think? Move that up. Move that up. Okay. To there. The knife tool. And then we have F. In this case, we kind of want that to be maybe there. Actually, let's do, nope, pressed F by mistake, which I usually do. Get your hotkeys right. And then we can go F there. And that's our whole loop again. So I'm going to clean that up, but just to save time, I'm going to do that. And then move them around again. Now this is an area that I do want to sort of see it. So I'm going to turn off in front and then move that up like so. I also want to see what's happening with the assets underneath it. So I'm going to put that there as well. Equidistant squares, once again, I think it's just a neatness thing, but it's good to be neat. It's also one of those things where, like, if you had a folio piece, you want it to look good in a wireframe. So if, for example, I had like a really fuzzy kind of this sort of thing, it wouldn't animate great for one, so there's that. But if it was just an asset, this wouldn't look good as a wireframe. You sort of want very neat polygons. So keep that in mind when you're sort of designing a lot of these sort of things. That's now, if we wanted to, and I kind of want to, I'm going to cut this across space. I'm going to get rid of this one. Dissolve edge, which will just get rid of edges. I'm going to delete that one. And then I'm going to add this. So like one polygon total, but you get an edge loop that you might want to use at some point later. So kind of important. Yeah. As you can see, now that I've told you all my secrets, it starts beating up. So we've got that. All right, how are we going for time? A bit of time. Concentration, quietness. Cool. So what I'd like to do maybe, let's sort of finish this bit and then look at other areas. I'm not going to be able to get the whole space done. This is one of those things which will take a fair bit of time. Keep that for the loop. These. And now I can't I can't grab that one and just go F because it'll do weird things like that. So that's why generally I will extrude one end, one line, if you will. And then I can start like just adding the loops as needed. What's going on with that one? Let's go maybe a bit more out there. Yep, that works. And then continue. Now with this one, also gonna stick with. No, those are too small. I would 100% just triangle that. It may loop, but depend on what you're doing. So there's sort of elements there. Might even close that one. Yeah, that's fine. And then back to it. I could actually clean that one because that'd be nice. So yeah, that's loop. And then let's get the body back and then add those up there. Except that bit. So I might figure something out there. The completionist. It's got to be great. There we go. Okay, so prime example, if I go line, so when you do things like this, the edge loop doesn't work. Triangles also do that. So when you've sort of got like elements of, sometimes it will work, so that works, but this one doesn't, and things like that. But if you hold Shift and Alt, you can just keep going with a lot of those sort of things as needed. So yeah. Okay. Okay, let's. Right. So that's pretty much how I would do the whole thing. Yeah, no, that's how I would do the whole thing. So what I'd like to do, actually, let's look at some other things that I could do. If I wanted to, I could mirror this. And because I've done this, it would not do that. So if you have a symmetrical asset, you could 100% mirror it using additive modifier mirror. And then you have that. Now my character is not asymmetrical. All the curves and the things there are a bit different. So that is an option. If you're making a robot and everything is perfectly symmetrical, you can 100% use that to do cool things. So heads up on that one. All right. So that goes under. So let's go solid again. I'm going to make sure this is here because I want to put that particular thing there. All right. Goes under. So there. Period or on the number pad will focus on any particular asset that I make. So if I snap on that, if I'm rotating, it's still there. But if I go period and scroll out, I will move around on that. That is super useful, especially when things get more complicated. So now notice how this asset actually has a polygon under there, but it will never, ever, ever, ever be seen. So I'm going to get rid of that one because we don't need it. This one, however, will, but the one behind it won't. So make sure that you sort of, how would you say it? Only show vertices that will be shown. I am uncomfortable with it because it's not like the perfect asset. That said, it is the way to do it. So highly recommended to do that yourself. And once again, just moving things around. And let's add a polygon there. Let's go with that one there. Good. And connect those two. Now this one up here doesn't have that, so I'm just going to extrude that one, move that up there. Now note this one down here has it and this one doesn't. So let's do this. I'm just going to join those two. And that's another approach I will use sometimes, where I will join, like I could, let's do this as an example. I could move this all the way down here. Line these up as needed. Nope, that one. Down there. Do that. And then Control R. That seems to be the good situation. And then you've got a lot of vertices you can align. I don't think it automatically does. It automatically aligns. One thing you could do, though, and this works on parts. So if I grab all of these ones that I just created, I'm going to use Alt S to make it, to scale it out on its current thing. And that's important for what I'm about to do. So I'm going to do Add Modifier, Shrink Wrap, and then select that. And it will, as you can see, it goes down. Go to Object Mode and go Apply. And this is now on the mesh. Now, it's not as accurate, so be careful with how you use it. So those are examples. So Shrink Wrap isn't accurate, but depending on your assets, it can work quite well. So that's another tool that you could use in your arsenal of retopologization. Retopology. And yeah, depends on the tool, the asset, the what's the approach you're working with. But as you can see, these are already matching up, so I don't have to worry about them so much. Might clean that up a little bit. And this is a good example of the silhouette, but the quads. So I might move these down a little bit, move that up a little bit, so you sort of can see the silhouette there. But I do want to keep that one. So you've got this sort of cut down there. Now you may want to sort of do this. So you get that element. But then if this animates, and this area in the middle of the thigh could be fine. Like you have enough polygons up here to animate, and you need enough down here for the knee. So this might be okay. The other approach is, let's do that. So we have that silhouette. Let's sort of add this one down here as well. You keep those edge loops, but you modify the silhouette a little bit. But if you have too much space, I would add a loop in there. Do that. But say, for example, this has sort of too many. We don't need it. So in this case, this might be a good example of where I will create one triangle to sort of clean that up. And then sort of do that. And we can do the same here as well. So we've got that silhouette. Once again, G on individual one, so it lines up correctly. So notice how that one popped out a bit. And then, I kind of like where that one is, so I'm gonna actually I'm gonna go down now. So this would be one approach to sort of a balance between silhouette versus edge loops. That said, I can't select the edge loop anymore. I can if I multi, but I don't have access to the whole space if I wanted to. So yeah, always a balance between animation, poly count, silhouette would be the summary of that. So yeah, let's clean this one up as well. Note that if you have assets and those two are different assets, you don't necessarily add it correctly if you just make it appear. So yeah, make sure you're balancing out your elements there. And same with these ones. So I'm going to push those up. To sort of there. Not sure why that's not, why that was moved, maybe. Sure there's a reason. Don't know what it was, but yeah. Yeah, that's fine. And this one as well. Scan, hide that. Put that there. Yeah. This one's the interesting one there. So let's have a look. Yeah, I'm going to move that one across. Yeah, it's good. It's fine. All right. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers all of the yeah, okay. So I was basing it on the see-through, not the yeah, okay. On me. So make sure you're looking at the right setting when you're applying all of these elements. But yeah, I'm sure you get the picture. Cool. All right, how are we going? 20 minutes to go or so. Just make sure, I don't think that's lined up either. But you get the idea. Okay, so that's the retopology part. And that covers most of the things that I would consider in that process. Yeah, that's it. So that works. Next up, what I'd like to do. Not, I think it comes down to the fact that okay. All right. Oh, I got distracted. That's right. Oh yeah. That's what it was. So I did this because I was going to do this. So yeah, I would add that element here as well with the same concept of extrude to the full length and then add this as needed. Yeah, that's where we want to be. Oh, I wonder if the shrink wrap kind of did this. Okay, I'm not too sure if it's just the selected. Maybe that was it. That messed this up. So when I did the shrink wrap, this kind of got shrunk wrapped. And that's the other thing. If it is below the mesh, shrink wrap doesn't work so well. And that's why I scale it up with Alt S to sort of do the shrink wrap correctly. So keep those in mind so you don't have the issue. But yeah, I'm not sure whether it will do it on the selected. I thought it did, but that would actually explain some of the issues I have on another avatar that I'm working on. So, yeah, that's that one. So let's go back to sort of the original plan, which was kind of, let's make sure that these line up. There they are. It's going to be quite complicated now, actually. But yeah. Apologies for that mess up, because that's going to take a little bit of time to fix. Well, very little, I guess, but yeah, you get the idea. Now that one goes up as well to there, I believe. And yeah, so all of these were like shrunk down to the next asset, which was kind of the pants rather than the belt, because I think these were under the belt. So that would make a lot more sense and very annoying. But here we go. Part of the process. Again, make sure I'm using the asset that it needs to be on. Good. Yeah. Sure, you get the picture. Now, if I wanted to, I could hide. So let's go Control I, hide. And we start having our belt, which is what we kind of do. I kind of want to finish that. And then just go Control U to undo it and then get back to our prize set. Yeah, that shrink wrap did a lot of things. Very annoying. But oh well. Okay. To it. Yeah. Note that sometimes like it will do that, where like you'll miss it a little bit and it'll go to a different location. So keep that in mind with the process, and always like rotate your asset to make sure that it's getting made correctly, I guess you could say. Go there maybe. Sure. This time I'm going to put that up, and then I'm going to sort of do a knife tool to grab that instead. That works. What is that polygon doing? I don't like that one. Okay. Better. Nope, not better. Nope, not better. Delete that one. We want polygon here. That's what we want. FF. And then we can do this. Now, another approach to this is I actually don't do these and just create a 3-line approach. So let's do a quick version of that, actually, because I think that would be a very good example of if you need to reduce your polygon count, because there's quite a lot of polygons in this sort of edge here. So what I would probably do is I'm going to grab that. Nope. I'm going to grab that one. I'm going to move that up there. So if I grab that and go dissolve edges, that. I might even get rid of some of these ones as well, because once again, the normal map is going to bake a lot of that information onto it. So let's do that with these as well. That's fine. And then we just need to sort of make sure that the normal map is facing the right direction for the things it's going to do. So we've got like up. Oh no, that goes over the top. So I can just leave that there. And that's fine. So when it comes to lower polygon models, because there's a lot in here and you probably won't even ever get this close. So I'm actually going to get rid of most of these actually. Good. Even the back one here. And because the normal map is going to be sort of projected that way, that will be fine. So I think, so I could keep them. Once again, get rid of that line. Those two. Those two. Merge those two. Right? Merge those two. So that's 100% better. But we could go even more. So I'm going to actually try this as well. And once again, because this polygon is here and it goes higher, it will, the bake will make that work correctly. So yeah, there are many different approaches to how you make your polygons work as well as possible, or do the job. So I'm going to do that. So once again, this doesn't look very good, but the silhouette does. So you got like there, which is fine. You've got there, which is fine. You're probably never going to see that silhouette, so that this doesn't matter. And when I look at it from every other direction, this will be baked correctly because that normal direction is sort of facing the detail. So this is kind of what we want to do. I think that's a much better approach to it. And it will also save a lot of time. So like figuring this out now will save a lot of time doing the whole thing. So I'm happy that I figured it out. And are there any cleans that I could possibly do here maybe for the same reason? So once again, you need to get that poly count down. So hidden faces do not have So we could do that. I could keep this one, but I might not keep this one. Or, yeah, so this one's a square because we need the polycounts down here, but up here we don't. So I can just grab these assets and just move them across. And then that's done. Let's go here, hide it, show it because reasons. Same approach here. And then I'd probably go there as well. So once again, that polygon, do a draw. Yeah, let's just do a draw using pink. So on the inside, you have that, and you have that. And that will be projected onto the normal map. So that's kind of what we want to do. That's great. And then continue, basically. Okay. Now to finish our stream, I'm going to quickly look at unwrapping in Blender. Now, Blender has an amazing tool, and this is where edge loops come in a lot. So go to line, so press 2. Alt click to select the line that you need, and go mark seam. Now, if this was all over there, I would probably put a seam in the middle, but not up there. So mark seam. Have a loop. This is an interesting one. If this was higher, I'd probably look at making a seam on this, but it might scale down and this would be a little smaller, but it'll be fine. So I'm not going to do that. I would put a seam down on the inside, so that's more hidden. We have this whole thing here, so I'm actually going to get rid of that because that's going to, otherwise that's going to overlap. And let's just put this around. That. Oh, get rid of that one. Clicking on the same thing will get rid of the line, so there's that. So I'm going to mark seam. And that's a simple example. So we'll have 3 islands. Now, of course, that would be all of that. 4 islands, because we've got this as well. If you're having boxes, though, and you don't want stretching, it's a good habit to get into sort of breaking that up so it flattens neatly. We'll see that in a second. But I think the rest is fine, and we will find out in a second. So, once you've done your mark seams, and once again, this is where you would cut out the asset and flatten things. And this will make a lot more sense with this. So I'm going to go to face on this side. A lot of Blender is where you are will change what you do. Also want to make sure that X-ray's on, so if the asset was made, you could do that. Now at the moment, this is what our map looks like. So I can't imagine texturing this would be great. But because we've done the seams, we can go UV, unwrap. Ta-da. It's basically done. Now, this is fine because that's what the buckle is. And then, of course, this would be more complicated with more complicated assets. And that's great. Now, as noted, in Mona VRM, for desktop, not VR or mobile or any of that. We'll worry about that later. You can have 2 materials. So basically, one approach, and the approach depends on you. I would have a material for the pants and shoes. Um, and then maybe I might do gloves or put something up here in there as well, because you want everything to be the same texture size in these sort of things. And then you would have a second material for the head and the torso. So how you do it is up to you, depending on the complexity of your asset and what your asset is. If I press 4, I can select the whole island. And then what you want to do is using G and R, so R to rotate, you kind of want to pack your assets into the space as much as possible, while keeping mostly the same size. So the head I might increase because heads are very important and people pay attention to that a bit more. But the body, you'll probably keep, maybe the hands, get a bit more detail in the hands. So once you get to VR, that'll be cool. And then fill out. Now, if I had a whole asset, of course, there would be a lot more things and I could fill in a lot of this. So imagine that this is a whole thing full, because this square is your texture. So this would be your 2048 by 2048 or 1024 or 512, depending on the asset. And then when you bake, which, do we do that next week? Yeah, we'll do that next week. We'll keep these to two hours sections, and see where we go. So basically, retopology and baking will be this session, and then we can do a quick bake and texture before a rig next week. So that'll work pretty well. So yeah, once you had a full retopology, you would fill this as much as possible. Any space is wasted space. So if you can figure out a way to sort of make things bigger, so scale up a little bit and just make sure it's on the inside just a little bit. You might need to rotate it so it gets aligned there. So that's better. Move that down. We can scale it up a bit more. And that's still in and as big as possible. And that's basically how you would unwrap it. Now, there are other unwrap methods. So you could say, for example, project an area. So if I did, like, let's say that, and I wanted this to be front on for different reasons. So let's do an example of that. So I'm going to grab that, go UV, and then go project from view, like that. And that will look exactly how it does. Other ones is Smart UV Project. So I will grab that and then just go Smart UV Project. And I think it's the whole thing. I don't think you can do it on a part. And that will sort of look at the angle, and everything beyond 66 will break. This is really good for non-organic assets. So robots are pretty good. You could do that pretty quick and you wouldn't have to worry about the seams. But for organic objects, you definitely want to put the seams in and then unwrap, because you get this. And then you would bake your high polygon onto the low polygon. So that's it. Pretty much exactly 2 hours. So I'm pretty happy with that. So that covers retopology and a quick unwrap. Of course, has retopology been done? Not too sure, but unwrapping has definitely been covered in workshops. Retopology kind of has as well. So workshops are definitely the way to go for those two in detail. But that said, I probably should add some of these elements into the VRM section or somewhere, because it works with space assets as well. Sofas, walls, you name it. So yeah, a lot of these techniques will apply to normal assets as well. If you make a sofa, you'd need to if you make a sculpted sofa or a high to polygon smooth sofa, you would have to retopologize it and bake it as well. So all of the things that we've looked at today will also apply to any assets you make in monospaces. Poly count and texture count and material count are extremely important. So being able to do these well and quickly is an extremely useful tool to make spaces that run smoothly. So you could 100% get like a high polygon space in Mono, but it'll, at the frame rate that you would get it, you'd be looking at a picture. So yeah, those sort of things do play a very large part in creating optimized spaces that run smoothly and everyone loves because it's awesome. So get on it. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in the Discord, monoverse.com to check all the things, and of course, docs.monoverse.com for the docs that cover some of these aspects and all of the things that we've been looking at from the last, this, and the next two workshops, especially with rigging and importing the VRM. So we will continue next week. All right. With that, I will see you off. Have a good day and happy building. See ya.